angels, it's Hailey Reese and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am so grateful that you are here and I really and truly do hope, as always, that you're having an absolutely incredible morning, afternoon, or night, whatever it is for you when this video finally reaches you. Today we are diving once again headfirst into a terrifying true Ouija board experience where once again everything went horribly wrong. Now, if you've been here lately on my channel, we've been exploring some of the darkest Ouija board experiences that have been shared. And so many of you guys have been enjoying these videos so much that there has been so many requests asking for more Ouija board stories. Now, what's interesting about this is that along with the constant request for more Ouija board experiences, I've been seeing a lot of comments from people saying that they cannot wait to grab their Ouija board this Halloween, take it with them to their family gathering, take it with them to the Halloween party, and see, in their words, what they're able to conjure up. Now, if you've been here on my channel, you would know where I stand with Ouija boards, the terrifying experiences that my family and friends have had, and my constant warning to, at the very least, do some research on Ouija boards, make sure you're familiar with the warning signs while playing and all the rules to, be aware of before picking up a Ouija board. But obviously, everybody is entitled to their own experiences, and everybody is, able to contact the other side and explore the world of the paranormal how they deem best for their lives. With that being said, while there are so many people who could play with a Ouija board and have a really fun, lighthearted, and fun spooky experience, there are others who picked up a Ouija board, especially on Halloween night, and discovered that it really wasn't a game to play with in the first place. And today, we are exploring an experience that serves as a warning of exactly that these Ouija boards are not a game, and that things can and do go really wrong sometimes. Now, I am not surprised that people want to pull out a Ouija board and play it this Halloween. This Halloween falls on a Friday. We are less than a week away from Halloween, which, by the way, I cannot believe that. I don't know if it's just me, but this month is flying by. But let's get into this experience so that if you are considering grabbing a Ouija board this spooky season, you can at least be made aware of the experiences that some people are having. And tonight, we're talking about the story of Erin Lee, the college student who set out to debunk a Ouija board once and for all, but then instead discovered something that he really couldn't explain. Erin was a complete skeptic, not even necessarily a skeptic, but a very practical guy who would need hard evidence and proof of something in order to say it as fact. So by the end of this experience, and when you hear where Erin stands now after having this experience, it really is eerie, because this was not a guy who was going out there to tell some crazy Ouija board story for attention or anything of that sort. This is someone whose life was dramatically and drastically changed after the experience. And it all begins with this 21-year-old named Erin Lee. Now, at this time, Erin was living in a quiet college town in Pennsylvania, and anybody who knew Erin would just describe him as this focused, studious, career and goal-driven guy. From the outside, if you took a look at Erin, you would right away realize that he seemed like an overall really well-rounded guy. He was years ahead of his age and just so focused in all that he did. But this was really rooted in immense pressure and this need that he felt to constantly achieve at the highest level. You see, Erin's mom was a science teacher and Erin's dad was an engineer. And so they'd both really raised Erin to be this practical and logical guy with education at the center of his life. Because of this, not only was Aaron known as a star student, but he'd also earned a reputation for being the guy who didn't believe in anything that he couldn't explain. This wasn't anything new to Aaron. He'd actually always been like this. His entire life, he'd always questioned everything. His parents had even said that when he was a toddler, he was already asking them these big questions about why things were the way they were and why things had to be the way they were. And if they didn't provide little Aaron with a proper answer, well, he was pretty upset. When it came to things like magic tricks, right? He'd pause videos to try to figure them out. He was the guy watching the magic show just to figure out how this level of magic was being done. So when it came to things like ghost stories, he was someone who wouldn't believe anything or really pay it any mind unless you could provide him with some sort of hard evidence. That was just the way that Aaron was. Whenever his friends would bring up anything unbelievable or paranormal or even like extraterrestrial, his favorite phrase was constantly, "There's always a reason. It's just not always obvious." But again, practicality was at the center of Aaron's personality. So let's get to where everything really starts to take a turn. It's the week before Halloween, ironically, and Aaron is sitting outside of the student center with a couple of his classmates. That's when the conversation turns spooky and centered around Halloween. Now they start talking about Ouija boards and stories about ghosts and voices and shadows and messages from beyond. All of these ghost stories are circulating and Ouija board experiences are being shared back and forth, and Aaron's there and just can't help but keep rolling his eyes at it all because he just believes he's got it figured out. Aaron's there shaking his head and starting to explain that it's micro movements, telling them that it's really just their brain moving their hands without them realizing. Aaron keeps insisting, as he always did, that it's simply science, it's not spirits. Now this debate gets heated and both sides are going back and forth trying to prove a point. I mean, not to be confused with aggression or an actual fight, but they're all just kind of debating Aaron's science standpoint on the Ouija board and all of their experiences and the spooky stories that they'd all heard over the years, right? All of a sudden, though, one girl just chimes in. She'd been sitting there the entire time, but she hadn't really spoken up. And she finally speaks up and tells them all that one of them needs to just find a way to prove it. So this girl starts to tell them and remind some of them of this ghost story that had been passed around by most of the students. She talks about this forest 10 miles outside of town where she claimed that the woods were cursed. She told of a really dark and eerie story and recalled how deep inside the forest there were ruins of an old stone structure, one that had been known to have been used for rituals and rumored to have been a space of sacrifice. The legend went that now chanting, screams, and whispers could still be heard among the forest air, and that spirits, both lost and vengeful, covered the land just waiting. At this point, you guys, Aaron is just laughing again. Imagine this in his eyes. He just thinks this is all crazy. It's just Halloween ghost stories. But by now, everyone else has been so invested that all their eyes are on him. He's really the only one laughing or taking this lightly at all. And that's when the girl looks at him and I guess tells him that she will buy a board and bring it to him if he'll go there on Halloween night and prove that it's not haunted and that Ouija boards really aren't any sort of communication to the other side and that ghosts can't communicate. Now, apparently the girl was so convinced that he was going to change his mind after this night in the forest with the Ouija board. She was certain that this forest and these ruins and this Ouija board and summoning upon whatever is there would be enough to turn any skeptic into a believer. Aaron's basically just doing it all for the plot, right? And he agrees to go to the forest on Halloween night, take a Ouija board that she'd get him, and play with it. So on Halloween night, Aaron gets ready to do exactly that. Aaron parks his car at the trailhead around 10:30 p.m. and he had with him his cell phone, a camera, and this brand new Ouija board that this girl had bought for him. And he starts walking into the forest. Now, Aaron recalls that everything was so creepily silent as he's walking through the forest. All he can hear is the crunch of the leaves underneath his boots, right? It is so quiet. And in this state of silence and just hearing his own breath and footsteps, well, Aaron starts to feel like he's hearing footsteps behind him. He starts turning around and looking around, but there's nobody there. And as he stops, every single time he stops, he hears just how silent it is. There's nobody else around. But as he keeps walking, it's like suddenly something's following him and rustling through the leaves and in the bushes and behind the trees. Now, at this point, he says that the air in the forest starts to feel really heavy as a fog even takes over the forest. All he can see in front of him is his breath, as it's so dark in the forest, it's hard to really see much. He has the light from his cell phone. Again, he has the camera and the Ouija board, but that's all he has. And he's so certain that he feels like he's being watched that he even starts to worry that he should have had some sort of protection, or that maybe he should have asked one of them to come with him and witness the thing, right? Aaron starts to shake as he's approaching these ruins, and he couldn't really decipher whether it's that he was cold or that he was becoming nervous, because in his mind, he's tricking himself now, right? He's tricking himself in the silence by thinking he's hearing something. He's tricking himself in his peripheral vision by seeing a tree that for a brief moment might have looked like a person. So, he is a little bit frightened, but he's also on the side of understanding why and having a reason for it. You see, Aaron never thought that he was someone who couldn't be scared. He was just someone who knew that what he was scared of wasn't actually anything to be afraid of. In his brain, it's all the mind playing tricks on him, right? Aaron just doesn't believe that ghosts are real, and he certainly didn't think that the Ouija board was either, but every now and again he keeps hearing these footsteps behind him and almost considers turning back because the energy is just weird. Again, he reiterates that it wasn't because he was scared or thought that there were ghosts, just maybe there was a serial killer. Aaron wasn't quite sure. After 20 minutes of walking and battling these noises that Aaron's hearing, he finally finds this structure. Now, Aaron says it was more like crumbling remains of a stone chapel or something, with the roof long gone and vines growing through the cracks. The air inside felt wrong, heavy and charged. He said it felt like it hadn't been touched in years, like stagnant energy that he was pushing through to go inside, right? Aaron remembers that he's giggling to himself nervously as he goes in. He sets up the flashlight on his phone. He sets up the tripod and the camera that are like attached to each other, and he presses record. He then goes over and sets himself all up, right? He puts a couple of candles. He's sitting cross-legged in front of the board, and he makes sure that the camera is in fact recording. He grabs his iPhone, flips it around, and shows the date and time so that whoever is going to watch this for proof can see that Aaron really was there on Halloween night, close to midnight, ready to play this Ouija board. Now, I do want to take a moment and mention here, as we talk about the Ouija board rules and making sure that you're familiar with them, well, Aaron was here in the middle of these ruins, in the middle of this forest that are both said to be haunted, with a Ouija board ready to play alone. Now, I do just want to take the moment to mention playing with a Ouija board alone is a rule that you are not supposed to break. But let's continue on with the story. Aaron says that he sits down, he places his hands on the planchette, and he's waiting for something to happen. And just as he's predicted, nothing is happening. So what does he decide to do? He says that he starts to move it around, but in a really believable way, with his plan being that once he was done and they're like watching the footage back and eating this up, he'll look over and be like, psych, see how believable that was? If you were playing with me, you'd have believed me. So he's like moving the planchette around the board himself, and he's like closing his eyes and moving in a way that makes it seem like he's in a trance and the board is taking over, so to speak. And it's all going fine, I guess. Like nothing's really happening besides his little show. And that's when things get really, really scary. Suddenly, as Aaron's there doing his little show and playing with the planchette, he realizes that he starts to feel a pull on the planchette that is absolutely not his own doing. It is like a tug. The planchette wants to go where it wants to go. Now imagine how he's suddenly feeling, right? He's there to prove that this is all just a trick of the mind and that it's not actually real. And now he's feeling a tug. And this tug is throwing him off a little bit. He actually later said that he would have thought if he hadn't set everything up himself, pulled it out of the box himself, and done it all himself, that like someone was there with a string tugging on it. Like there was no stopping the planchette from where it wanted to go. The planchette starts to spell things out like ritual and then blood. And almost all at once, as he's sitting there becoming more and more uncomfortable, all the candles that he's lit just blow out. So now he's just sitting there absolutely terrified, and he pulls his hands off of the planchette, just sitting there in shock. Again, this was not the experience that he'd anticipated having, right? And this is something that he just can't explain yet. In his mind, he knows that once he's able to come out of the situation, there will be a logical explanation, but now he's there trying to figure out what it could be, right? And before he has any time to come to a conclusion of this, he hears what sounds like shattering glass or a big bang or explosion. Now he looks over right away and he's scanning these dark ruins, right? Trying to see what that sound was. His breath is trembling. He's shaking even more now. He goes to stand up to leave, and that is when he screams. A blood-curdling scream. Aaron had felt a sharp pain going down his back, and he goes to reach for the camera, but before he can even grab the camera, he looks and he sees a figure by the doorway staring and looking right at him only a couple of feet away. Standing there is this woman he describes, but she's not really a woman because she's not quite right. The legs are too long. Her face is too stretched. Her smile is so evil. He says that he actually fell back. He's screaming and he's grabbing the camera and leaving behind the board and just running out of the space. And all he can think is, that's on camera. He knew for certain that that doorway would have been captured on camera. He gets back to his car. He's completely drenched in sweat, and he's sitting there with his back burning and his mind just absolutely racing. Aaron's doing what he does best. He's sitting there trying to think of every single logical explanation. And then he lands on one that feels right, one that suddenly makes him feel better. And all the fear that he had and the racing heart starts to calm, and it all just goes away, and he's catching his breath now because he knows what must have happened. You see, Aaron suddenly remembers that they knew he was going to the ruins on Halloween night. Of course they did. They told him to. And they knew that he was skeptical or more on the logical side, and that he was going to go there with a mission to just prove that it's not real. So in his mind, what made sense was that they'd went out there first. They'd hid or they'd waited. They'd dressed up and they'd tried to scare him. He started to think about the fact that it didn't look human and it didn't look right, but he keeps thinking, my mind must have played tricks on me in the darkness, and it had to be some sort of costume. He's thinking to himself, they'll show me the costume once the jig is up, once I catch them in the act, and then we'll all be able to have a good laugh about it. He heads off and he heads back home, feeling like he's at the very least understood what happened to him. Aaron gets home. He doesn't even shower. He just changes into his pajamas, climbs into bed, and tries to go to sleep as he's replaying the whole night, terrified by what he'd seen, but also thinking about what he was going to say when he saw them all the next day and how he was going to let them know that he knew what they did. So the next morning, Aaron gets up, he grabs the camera, he grabs what he needs, and he heads out the door and goes to campus, right? Aaron starts laughing and clapping as he's approaching them, like, good show, fantastic, you guys did great. And right away he notices, like, wow, they're really gonna play dumb. Like, they're really gonna act like they didn't just scare the literal life out of me in the middle of a haunted forest, in the middle of these ruins. But everybody's looking at him confused, and not even like in a funny way where they're like looking at each other. They're all just like, what are you talking about? Like, what does this even mean? Him seeing them playing dumb in the moment just kind of makes him laugh even more. He's laughing at them, saying like, guys, give it up. But then he starts to realize that nobody else is finding this funny. There's nobody laughing with him. There's no one in on the joke. They're all just confused. So then he starts to explain to them that he knows what they did. He starts from the beginning and he tells them everything that happened. And they're looking at him like he's making this up, but also some of them are really scared. They're telling Aaron that they absolutely did not go to the ruins, that it wasn't them, but that they want to see this footage. And so Aaron goes and grabs the camera. And again, he hasn't looked at this yet, right? He got home, he went to bed, he got up and he left. So he pulls up the footage and he's so ready to show them because he knows that where he saw this demon woman is exactly where the camera was aiming toward. So they go through the footage, right? And all of it seems normal at first. You see Aaron getting all set up and getting ready to do everything. You see that the camera is perfectly facing the direction in which he claims to have seen this entity, this figure, and the footage carries on. But as the footage is playing, you guys, Aaron's jaw is the only one on the floor. Because you see him there, you see him getting scared, you see the planchettes hugging, you see Aaron terrified, and you see him freak out. But there's nothing captured on the camera. The only thing that is captured on the camera is the crash and the sound that he'd heard. What he'd seen isn't there. So imagine how Aaron's feeling, right? Like at first, everything's looking normal in the footage. He's walking through the woods. Then he sets up again and he starts with the questions and the planchette moves and the letters spell ritual and they spell blood. And then the crash happens and Aaron looks towards the archway, but there's nothing there. No woman, no figure, just an empty doorway. Aaron is so distraught, he doesn't find any of this entertaining. That night, he just goes home and heads straight to the bathroom to take a shower. He feels like he's going crazy. Again, this is the guy who needs an explanation for everything, always has, always will. He starts the shower, he goes to undress, starts taking off his shirt, and he feels that stinging, burning sensation on his back again. That's when he looks in the mirror and he sees what look like nail scratches down his back in places that Aaron couldn't reach, and beyond that, Aaron didn't have nails or a girlfriend. So now Aaron's there questioning everything. He knows he saw a demon person. He knows that his friends didn't do it. He could tell by their reactions, and he knows that that pain happened right before he saw the entity. And now there's actually a physical manifestation of the pain he'd felt displayed down his back. For years, it's said that Aaron has continued to try to come up with any possible practical explanation, but none that he has come up with for that night are good enough for him. None of them make enough sense. He says that part of him will always hope that it was just a prank, but the footage tells of a different story and he knows what he saw. Aaron says that he will never touch a Ouija board again, and that even if he refuses to admit that they're real, he knows that what he experienced was, even if he can't explain it. So what do you guys think of this Ouija board experience? I think it's absolutely terrifying to picture someone alone in the middle of a haunted forest, in the middle of ruins that are used for ritualistic things and potentially sacrifices. He plays with the Ouija board, he gets attacked, and then he sees some dark or evil entity all on Halloween night. And I mean, what's interesting is we could argue that maybe it was someone else pranking him. Maybe someone else had been out in the woods on Halloween night in their costume, and that's obviously possible. But the costume thing was already a far stretch for Aaron. He said it didn't look like a costume. It looked like nothing he'd ever seen. So what do you think it was, guys? I would absolutely love to know down in the comment section below. But that is it for today's true, terrifying Ouija board gone wrong. If you guys are new to my channel or you are just not yet subscribed, but you do enjoy my content, I would absolutely love it more than you would ever know if you would go ahead and click that subscribe button. I am uploading a new video every single day, so if you do enjoy my content, make sure to join the family, and please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness, and until tomorrow, I love you. Bye, guys.